It's all in caps. Turn that cap machine off. Hey Rangers, welcome back to another video. And today, I kind of want to bring up a topic. I watched DosmRider's video on his Go Away, which was talking about how like Power Rangers need to move past like the MMPR phase. And he said something at the end that made me think that I really kind of wanted to talk about. And I really want to give an answer. Like, do you know when you get to the point where you really want to talk about something and you want to be like, go, this is the reason why. But I got to the point where I couldn't figure what it could be. And that's what kind of got me a bit frustrated, because only Hasbro can do the answer. But what he makes in this like slightest question makes perfect sense. And I'm going to give my thoughts on it. It brings up a very good point on the point where Saban brought back Power Rangers from Disney, that they could have changed it into something else. It didn't have to be Power Rangers. Now, a lot of us pretty much put it down to the thought of that, you know, it was, he bought it back from the company. He wanted to turn around and go, hey, you know, this is the series that I had, so let's turn it back to Power Rangers, MMPR, you name it, you know, it gives it off. But it's been a continuous thing. Now, I've just done a video on branding, on why they use the word go-go, because it's part of their brand now. It's been in it since '93, and it's only never been used in Dino Thunder as well as RPM. But it's a really good question of why couldn't they have rebranded? Why couldn't they have changed Power Rangers to be something a little bit more, rather than going back to using Mighty Morphin? And I think there are some key massive elements in this. Mainly, I think the way that he thought was, as soon as he brought back Samurai, it would be the most popular thing around. Now, I do think, and I think many people would agree, Power Rangers will never be as big as it was when it first came out, roughly around about 93, and we'll talk about maybe the first 3 seasons and maybe Alien Rangers. But if you imagine, like, or if you know back then, you know, you had highways full of people wanting to go and watch the Universal thing in Florida, like the stage show, toys were completely sold out, and you don't normally see that big hype anymore. So I think that Saban really wanted to kind of bring back everything to remind you of the nostalgia, so that you go out and buy it. You know, I want to go buy a new Samurai toy, you know, I want to do this. But I think with his thinking, it didn't work out. And I think with Bandai being in on this, is they pushed the whole brand way too much, and they focused mainly on Mighty Morphin. And I feel that's it's a very hard kind of thing to get out of. Like, Bandai for years was just mainly concentrating on Mighty Morphin, or they were producing really shit toys. But, you know, it felt like this is when people got annoyed. Oh my god, there's a new item out which is all about Tommy or Jason or Tommy or whatever. So I feel like both Saban as well as Bandai wanted to make it as big as it was back in '93, but that magic can't be done. So they just were a bit lazy and they just couldn't be bothered. We saw it with Samurai, not the series, but the whole thing of, here is the Mighty Morphin rift guitar thing. Here is the entire whole, how do I say, it's the entire whole way it is, go Power Rangers. And it, but then that then just felt like I was going into Beast Morphers. But it's the same sort of thing where it's just the same elements that popped up, and we've seen it all the way through, from Samurai to pretty much Dino Fury. We even saw Samurai bring Bulk back, and obviously they had Skull in the last episode of Super Samurai. But again, it was bringing this nostalgia for people to go like, oh my god, I remember those two, maybe I should watch. And I think they tried to kind of capitalize on it a bit more and say, hey, do you remember what it used to be like in the 90s? This is what Power Rangers is. And Power Rangers has not actually changed whatsoever. And I feel that it needs to, on a whole level, otherwise it's just literally going to stay where it is. And I think Hasbro noticed this, but they can't get out of the trap themselves, because I do believe that it goes back to the fans. If it's not Mighty Morphin or has elements of Mighty Morphin in it, people complain, and that's the main thing. So I do believe it's some fans as well, like fans like myself, who want it to move on, to grow into the property that we think it should be. but it's still held back by the reins of 93 and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Nostalgia is a very powerful thing because it has certain elements to it. Do you remember that favorite game that you play that gives you a great feeling? We saw it mentioned in the Big Bang Theory when Sheldon would just literally play Super Mario when he was a kid, but then it triggers it off. So as soon as he hears that music, he literally goes back to thinking about it and, you know, relives his childhood. Same thing is when you see a toy on a TV show, like, you know, let's say Jason the Wheeled Warriors, He-Man, Thundercats, and you instantly go back to that childhood because that made you feel safe. And I believe this is what Bandai and Saban were trying to do, and it's not done very well so far. DosmRider does give a very good point, is that they could have reinvented themselves. They could have turned around and gone, hey, we're not going to stick with that. We're going to go down our own thing and we'll change it every single season. But I do think Saban, as well as the guys at the production of Power Rangers, became lazy. And we've seen this all the way through Super Megaforce, where they couldn't do anything with the Gokaiger footage, yet there are tons of things that you could have done. They were just lazy or just didn't bother. And you can see this with the decline in sales for the toys, the way that they brought the toys out. It felt like they just didn't want to put anything in and rely on what the show had done in previous years, mainly picking up that Mighty Morphin name. So if you put elements in like the theme tune, the Go Go Power Rangers, people pick it up and then they just go, well, you know, I'll watch this because it reminds me back of when Jason, Tommy, Zach, Trini and Billy were there. And that's it, and you're kind of relying on that main thing. Now, I do think that maybe the contract with Toei kind of comes into play with this. Is there a point where, you know, they've had this formula for such a long time that they weren't able to kind of change it, and thus therefore that they had to kind of keep to it? Maybe that's it, stick with the formula. It doesn't work, but they just didn't kind of care and were just like, eh. Maybe it's also the fans. Maybe the fact that MMPR is such a big thing that's stuck inside some fans' heads that they instantly go back for it. Like, they won't let the franchise move on. And we've seen this in, like, say, versus posts, or like, you know, hey guys, I found this old figure, do you want, you know, it brings me back so much joy. Or the fact is that as soon as the company tries something new, they go crazy for it. They go like, you can't do that, you've ruined my childhood. I hate that. I absolutely goddamn hate that. Oh, it's ruined my childhood. But again, look at the 2017 film where Jason was going to get with Kimberly, but fans didn't like that because they wanted it to be exactly the same as what they saw in the show. So it was straight away, it was all the time like, oh, you know, Jason can't get with Kimberly, rah rah rah. But yet they had to change it, and it just didn't kind of work well from how some of the shots were shot. But still, you know, is that a key point in this? The fans won't let anything go, and they think that Power Rangers should be Mighty Morphin straight away and no change whatsoever. A lot of fans complained about the Disney era, but to be fair, the Disney era was actually a really good era for Power Rangers because they took what Saban had done and they kind of like changed it to what they thought, which worked until then they decided to kill the brand, and then Saban brought it and pretty much again killed what he created, to the point where you just think, oh, why did you even do that? But I do think Saban as well as Bandai did stop the brand from actually kind of growing and maturing for what it was doing. It was doing so well, then all of a sudden they just took it back to 93 and it felt like they didn't know what to do with it, so they just decided to go with what they wanted, and thus therefore it was killing the brand even more. I think that with Hasbro, like as soon as they came on board, they had the perfect opportunity to turn things around so it's not exactly the same, and I feel like they missed a big kind of opportunity. They could have put their finger on the brand, and they went back to Mighty Morphin. Most of the toys that they've sold has been Mighty Morphin, and that I think is a huge thing where it could have been completely different. You know, most of the toys that they've sold, Lightning Collection has been Mighty Morphin, even though it's slightly changing now, but other products, Megazords, it's been Mighty Morphin, roleplay weapons, Mighty Morphin. And again, Hasbro, I think, have fallen into that trap of giving what the fans demand, but yet some fans don't even buy it, and they just whine that, you know, if it's not a Power Morpher from 93, I don't care. And you're like, oh, come on guys, seriously. Now, we've seen a lot of fans bash Hasbro if they don't stick to the formula. Look at the way that, if it's true with the rumors of the toy and Hasbro split, where people have been really angry, where it's like, hey, this needs to be exactly the same as this, and it's always has to follow on from the Sentai. And I fell into that trap until I learned and looked around, where after Beast Morphers, I was like, oh, it's going to be Torcuja. It has to be Torcuja, because it has to go back to the way of Saban. And I was very guilty of that until I decided to look into it a lot more and actually educate myself. And I was like, right, they can't do it. It's a business at the end of the day, and if that business model isn't selling, they're going to change the formula. But we've seen that fans don't like this, and it has to be the same. The formula has not worked. The formula isn't working, and Hasbro are trying to fix it to find a way. But again, some fans don't like this, and you see it all the time, and that kind of irritates me, because if they're not willing to learn how the brand works or how to move on, then Hasbro is going to cater to them and give them what they want, and yet it's going to just run itself into the ground. Again, when you look at this, if any person comes up and tries to give their opinion, like they say, oh, this is what I think it could work like, whatever, then they get slammed. And no matter what they say, it's literally they go on, and it gets very irritating after a time when you're just getting constantly slammed. And then when you're proven right, or that you are going in the right direction, that those people don't kind of take it in, and it's therefore when you say something later, they fall back into that trap, and it's just very kind of frustrating. It feels like certain fans want the company to bend to their knee, but then you can find out that most of those people that demand something don't even buy the product or watch the product, and that is one of the bigger type things all the time. I agree. I agree with DosmRider when he talks about that they could have made it the series their own, where they didn't know they could have changed everything. Where he says like swipe all the Mighty Morphin trash under the rug or in the bin. I think that would have been a great thing. I think sitting down and going, how do we make this product, rather than, oh, hey, let's just carry on with everything. The 2 points I think that you could have done this is, one, it would have been when Saban bought the brand back. He could have reimagined it all and made it look better, but I think that they were just lazy. They couldn't be bothered, and they wanted to go with the same thing, hoping it was going to sell toys. Yeah, again, I don't know what the samurai figures or the sales for like that. And the second one is when Hasbro bought it. Now, I was hoping that Hasbro were going to make Beast Morphers their crown jewel, promote all of it all the time, sell all that merchandise. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. And I think that Mighty Morphin has had that thing for ages, that it does sell because Bandai really turned around and pushed it. They made it do it. Saban's put the ideas in people's heads. And I feel like now that if you start trying to take away that, or you start trying to evolve your brand into something completely different, I think that's not going to happen. I think that people are going to assume that it has to be Mighty Morphin or Mighty Morphin. It has to be at the front line when fans want something different. And when you hear the Power Ranger theme tune, or you hear about Mighty Morphin, you just literally go, oh, this again. So normal people who have not been keeping up with the brand are going to be watching this. They're going to watch it, and they're going to go back to it and go, I remember the days of my morphing, and they'll go back and watch it again and again, and then carry on maybe. I think that is the main thing, is this brand hasn't changed since 93. They moved away from it, and you could see it in the toys, you could see it in the products, but at some point they just got lazy and was just like, we can't be bothered with this. And I think this is one of the worst things that Saban and Bandai did, because I'm lumping them together for this one, because they're the ones that are really pushing the product. I think Hasbro do have a little bit of time to move away, but I feel like they won't. I think now they're stuck in the rut. If they change it for whatever happens after Dino Fury, I'll be very surprised if they take it down a different road. But for now, I think it's just going to stick the same. I think that Beast Morphers could have been its own thing. I think that maybe even Dino Fury could be Hasbro's way, but I think until they stop catering towards the Mighty Morphin fans and catering towards 90s nostalgia, I think that we won't move away. We'll hear the Go-Go Power Rangers, we'll hear the Mighty Morphin music or a version of that, and that will be it. I think we're not going to move away for that. I kind of really want to go more in depth in this, but I don't know if I'm going to. It may be a future video if people want to see it. I'm going to look into it a little bit more, but I feel like pretty much the brand has been solidified and properly on the word Go-Go or Go-Go Power Rangers, and that's going to be the main thing. Will they move away from Mighty Morphin? I think there's only so much Mighty Morphin product you can produce. You know, the stuff that, you know, we're going to get from you know, Bandai's versions, communicators, power weapons. I think there's still a lot more you can do with Mighty Morphin, but you have to bring out something different. I think that's the main option. Will it happen? I don't know. I'm going to leave it there. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think I've hit the nail on the head? Do you think that you know, Mighty Morphin is going to carry on from whenever? Or do you think that Hasbro is now stuck in the same way as what Bandai was with Saban? Let me know down below in the comments. If you like this sort of content, hit the like button, hit the dislike button if you want. Hit the cheeky comments. Oh god, when you try and do something different, it messes up. Yeah, if you want to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as leave a comment. That would be great. If you want to dislike it, that is absolutely fine. But I'm going to leave it there. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next video.